What would you do if the most feared ship in the galaxy opened its door only for humans? What would you think if every alien who touched it died, but when one human placed her hand on its hull, the ship answered back? Before we step into this mystery, take 1 second to like this video, subscribe to the channel, and share it with someone who loves deep space stories where humanity proves why it should never be underestimated. The ship had no single name. That was the first strange thing about it. Every species called it something different, and every name carried fear. The Vthari called it the Mouth. The Draysan called it the Empty God. The Sorn Collective used a word that did not translate well into human speech. The closest meaning was the thing that should never be watched for too long. The ship floated at the far edge of the Rylan cluster, where the stars were dead and the rocks were cold. It was not hidden. It was not protected by storms or black holes or strange gravity fields. It was simply there, hanging in silence beside old moons and broken stone. It had been there for more than 400 years. Nobody knew who had built it. Nobody knew how old it really was. Nobody knew where it had come from, what it wanted, or why it had stopped in that quiet part of space. But everyone knew one thing. Every species that had tried to board it had died. Every single one. The first were the Draysan. They were careful people. They were not foolish explorers chasing glory. They were engineers, patient and precise, the kind of people who checked a door 3 times before opening it. Their ships had mapped dangerous systems without losing a crew. Their machines were trusted across half the known galaxy. So when they sent 12 of their finest engineers toward the nameless ship, many believed they would finally solve the mystery. Their small boarding craft moved slowly. It scanned the hull from every angle. It sent back clean readings. No weapons. No active shields. No warning signals. No visible engines. No life signs. The craft touched the hull. For 4 seconds, one transmission came back. It was not a voice. It was not a scream. It was a rising tone, thin at first, then higher and sharper, until it became almost painful to hear. Then there was silence. The boarding craft disappeared. The engineers disappeared. No wreckage was found. No emergency beacon survived. Only one thing remained on the hull of the great ship. A dark mark, about the size of a human hand, burned into the metal. It looked like someone had reached outward from inside. For 40 years, nobody went near the ship. Then the Kethari came. They were not patient like the Draysan. They were warriors. Tall, strong, proud, and brutal, the Kethari had conquered 11 systems in less than a century. They believed everything in space belonged to whoever was strong enough to claim it. To them, the mysterious ship was not a warning. It was a prize. They sent 5 heavy assault craft. Inside them were 400 soldiers. They carried cutting tools, plasma drills, armored suits, and enough firepower to break open the hull of a small moon. Their commanders broadcast the mission across the sector, so every species could watch them take what others were afraid to touch. The Kethari Grand Commander gave a speech before the attack. He said fear was a disease. He said the ship was only metal. He said the galaxy would remember that the Kethari did not bow to dead things. Then the assault craft reached 500 meters from the hull. All 5 ships stopped. There was no explosion. No flash. No beam. No missile. Nothing attacked them. Their engines simply died. Life support failed. Backup power failed. Manual controls failed. Every system went dark within 3 seconds. The 5 ships drifted beside the great dark hull for 2 days before a recovery team dared to pull them back. Inside, they found all 400 soldiers sitting in their seats. Dead. No wounds. No burns. No signs of struggle. Their hands rested quietly in their laps. But every face showed the same expression. Fear. Not surprise. Not confusion. Fear so deep that even the Kethari, a species trained since childhood to crush terror inside themselves, had died with it frozen on their faces. The galaxy changed after that. Maps were updated. Warning marks were placed around the coordinates. Safety files were rewritten. Ships that passed near the Rylan cluster adjusted course without asking why. The nameless ship gained a new title in trade networks and pilot channels. The Condemned. It was not an official name, but names like that do not need permission. They spread because everyone understands them. Do not approach the Condemned. Do not scan it too closely. Do not try to board. Do not answer if it calls. Over the next 3 centuries, 9 more attempts were made. Some came with machines. Some came with soldiers. Some came with prayers. The Velhari came with gifts. They were diplomats, gentle and patient by nature. They believed any intelligence able to build something so huge must have reason. They sent 3 respected speakers in a small vessel, carrying symbols of peace and recordings in 47 languages. Their ship reached the outer range of the Condemned. Then it went silent. The Velhari held a memorial and never returned. The Sorn Collective sent probes instead of people. Their machines lasted longer than any crew had managed. For 11 minutes, they sent back data. The ship had air inside. The pressure was stable. The atmosphere was breathable for many species. The gravity was controlled. And something inside was moving. Then the probes went silent too. The Ketheri tried again 80 years later. They sent 1,200 soldiers, better ships, stronger armor, and an artificial intelligence built to reach the hull before any defense could react. The result was the same. Dead soldiers. Silent ships. Fear on every face. After that, the Galactic Council declared the area restricted. That was the Council way of saying nobody had any answer, and they hoped the problem would remain still forever. For 400 years, the Condemned did remain still. Then it moved. Captain Elena Voss learned about it while her ship, the SS Resolute, was doing a routine survey near the Tarsus Belt. The Resolute was not a warship. It was a middle-class survey and salvage vessel, old enough to have personality and young enough to still pass inspection. It had 2 light defensive cannons, 1 engine that complained often, and 11 crew members who had all chosen the edge of explored space because ordinary life had never quite fit them. Elena Voss was 34, sharp-eyed, compact, and quiet in a way that made people listen when she spoke. Her crew trusted her because she never made danger sound smaller than it was. Her first officer, Dax Reeves, found her in the common room and placed a data chip on the table. He said nothing. Voss looked at the chip, then at him. Dax said, "You need to read it." She did. The message was a Galactic Council priority alert. The Ketheri had made a 3rd attempt on the Condemned. This time they had sent 3 full assault wings, 1,200 soldiers, and a special AI craft designed to reach the hull at extreme speed. The AI craft had made contact. For 1 second, its sensors recorded the surface. Then every Ketheri ship went silent. Every soldier died in the same way as before. But that was not the reason for the alert. After the Ketheri fleet went dark, the long-range probes around the restricted zone recorded something impossible. The Condemned moved. For the first time in 400 years, the huge alien ship rotated on its axis. Slowly. Deliberately. 17 degrees. Then it stopped. Its forward section now pointed toward inhabited space. Toward the inner systems. Toward the core worlds where billions of lives moved through ordinary days, unaware that something ancient had turned its face toward them. Voss read the report twice. On the wall screen, the Rylan cluster glowed as a small red zone near the edge of the map. The Resolute was 4 light days away. Voss said, "Every species that tried to enter died." Dax said, "Yes." And now it moved. Yes. She heard a distant banging sound from engineering. That was Marcus Webb, her chief engineer, hitting something with a wrench. On the Resolute, this usually meant a system was broken but still loyal. Voss placed the data chip down. Plot a course. Dax reached into his pocket and placed a second chip on the table. Already done. Voss stared at him. You waited? I wanted to see if you would say it first. For your peace of mind. For mine. She picked up the second chip. Get everyone in the main bay. 1 hour. The crew gathered among cargo crates, tool racks, and emergency lockers. Voss told them everything. She did not make it heroic. She did not make it sound noble. She said the condemned had killed everyone who approached it. She said it had moved for the first time in centuries. She said it was now aimed toward populated space. Then she told them the Resolute would go. Anyone who wanted off could leave at the nearest station with full pay and no questions. 10 seconds passed. Nobody moved. Marcus raised a hand. He was broad-shouldered, gray-bearded, and permanently squinting, as if the universe itself had poor lighting. What is the plan when we get there? Voss said, I am still working on that. Marcus nodded, satisfied. Security Officer Brant Cole raised a hand next. I am not leaving, he said. I just want it recorded that this is a terrible idea. Voss said, recorded. The ship changed course. Behind them, the Tarsus belt fell away. Ahead, for light days distant, the Ryland cluster waited in cold silence. And inside it waited the ship that rejected every alien who had ever tried to enter. Around 1,500 words in, you are still here, which means this story has already pulled you into the dark. Give the video a like, subscribe for more HFY stories, and share it with a friend who enjoys watching humanity walk straight into the impossible. Within hours, warnings began to arrive. 11 messages from 8 species. Formal advisories. Emergency requests. Direct orders from councils that had no authority over human ships. They all said the same thing. Turn back. Voss sent one reply to all of them. We are a registered survey vessel operating in uncontrolled space. We will maintain communication during approach. We do not expect to require assistance. That reply caused more panic than silence would have. On the second day of travel, Dax came to Voss late in her quarters. He stood in the doorway. 14 long-range probes are tracking us now, he said. 6 governments are watching. Good, Voss said. If we vanish, someone will know where. Dax did not smile. Are you scared? Voss looked at the cold coffee on her desk. Yes. He nodded. Me too. Neither of them spoke for a moment. Then Dax said, I keep thinking about the way it moved. It did not turn toward the Ketheri homeworld. It did not turn toward the council worlds. It turned toward the inner systems. Voss looked up. Toward us. Humans are the newest species in galactic space. Maybe that matters. Maybe it is coincidence. But neither of them believed that. By the morning of the third day, the condemned was visible on long-range sensors. Not as a point. As a shape. It was 3 kilometers long. A dark, layered mass drifting against the empty background of dead stars. Even through cameras, it looked wrong. Not damaged. Not broken. Wrong in a deeper way, like space around it had accepted rules that the rest of the universe had refused. Pilot Ren Chen called Voss to the bridge. Ren rarely wasted words. Captain. You should see this. Voss arrived and looked at the display. The condemned had rotated again. It was now pointing directly at the Resolute. The probes had calculated the timing. It had turned 6 hours earlier, around the time Voss stopped reading warning messages. Brant entered the bridge holding a protein bar. He looked at the display. He chewed slowly. Then he said, lovely. Nobody laughed. The Resolute crossed into the outer perimeter of the condemned just before noon. There was no line in space, but every previous record described strange effects beginning at this distance. Navigation errors. Sensor confusion. Communication static. A deep desire among crews to leave. The Resolute crossed the invisible boundary. Marcus called from engineering. That is strange. Voss opened the comm. Talk to me. The engine is fine. That never sounds good when you say it. No, I mean it is better than fine. Efficiency just increased by 12%. Ren looked over from the pilot station. Could be a sensor error. Marcus made a sound of insult. It is not a sensor error. I can hear the engine running cleaner. Something has smoothed out the system. Voss looked at the dark ship ahead. Can you explain that? No. Can you keep us moving? Yes. Then keep us moving. At 300 meters from the condemned, Voss ordered Ren to stop. The ship filled the forward screen. Its hull was made of overlapping plates of dark metal, each larger than the Resolute. The surface caught almost no light, but deep within the metal ran veins of blue-green color, faint and cold, visible only at certain angles. No windows. No docking ports. No engines. No lights. Nothing that looked built for use. Dax scanned the hull. No visible entry. Voss said, find the Drasan mark. 700 meters along the port side, they found it. The hand-shaped scorch mark was still there. Small against the enormous hull. It looked fragile. Human, almost. Marcus scanned it from the Resolute. The hull composition is the same as everywhere else, he said. No door. No weakness. No seam. He paused. Wait. Voss looked at him. That section is warmer. How much? 3 degrees above the surrounding hull. The heat is coming from inside. The bridge fell quiet. Voss stared at the mark. The Drasan had touched the hull and died. But this mark did not look like something burned from outside. It looked like something inside had reached outward. Voss said, I am going outside. Dax turned toward her. Captain. I am not taking tools. No cutter. No weapon. I am not forcing entry. I am going to put my hand on the hull. Brandt said, that sounds very close to what got 12 engineers killed. They came to open it, Voss said. I am not. She looked at the mark. I am going to say hello. Brandt studied her face for a long second. Then he said, I will get your suit. She went alone. The airlock opened, and Voss stepped into the black silence of the cluster. Her suit systems were steady. Her breathing was loud inside her helmet. The condemned waited in front of her, huge and dark. She used small thruster bursts to cross the distance. The hand-shaped mark grew larger. She reached the hull. For a moment, she hovered there. Then she lifted her hand and pressed her palm flat against the metal. It was warm. Not sun-warmed. Not machine-warmed. Warm like something with a living process behind it. She waited. 10 seconds. 30. A full minute. Nothing attacked her. No systems failed. No fear crushed her heart. Her suit remained stable. She moved her palm slightly and pressed again. The hull vibrated. Once. Deep and gentle. Like a breath. Then 3 meters to her right, the hull opened. No explosion. No tearing metal. The overlapping plates shifted and folded back into themselves, smooth as fingers opening from a fist. A doorway appeared. 2 meters tall. Wide enough for one person. Inside was darkness, but not complete darkness. Faint blue-gray light pulsed deeper within, slow and steady, like a heartbeat. Voss stared into the opening. Behind her, the Resolute waited. She knew every person on board was watching through her suit camera. She opened the comm. I found the door. After a short silence, Marcus said, "Of course you did." Dax, Brant, and Yara suited up next. Voss wanted to go in alone, but Dax refused before she could finish the sentence. For minutes later, the three of them crossed from the Resolute and joined her at the opening. Brant kept reaching toward the empty place where his weapon usually sat. Voss had ordered all weapons left behind. He had not liked that order. He had obeyed it. The passage inside the ship was wide enough for two humans side by side. The walls were made of the same dark metal as the exterior, but inside the surface carried thin glowing lines at shoulder height. They pulsed in a steady blue-gray rhythm. Dax checked his scanner. Atmosphere is breathable. Temperature is 21 degrees. Gravity is 0.9 standard. Yara said quietly, "It kept this place ready." "For 400 years, Dax said. Brant looked into the curving passage. "Ready for what?" Nobody answered. They walked in. Every step carried a low vibration through the soles of their boots. The passage curved after 20 meters and opened into a chamber so huge their lights could not reach the far wall. Lines of blue-gray light spread across the ceiling like veins. Four large corridors led away from the chamber in different directions. The sound was stronger here. Not loud. Deep. Felt more in the ribs than heard by the ears. Yara looked around slowly. "It let us in." Voss said, "Yes." "It killed everyone else outside." "Yes." Yara turned to her. "So what is different about us?" Voss looked at the four corridors going into darkness. "I do not know yet." She chose the left corridor. The others followed. The walls were covered in markings. Not random scratches. Language. The same unknown characters that had appeared on the Resolute screens during approach. They ran from floor to ceiling in long columns, like pages written directly into metal. Dax recorded everything. It sent us its language before we entered. Yara said, "Maybe it was a greeting." "Or a warning," Brant said. The corridor led them to a smaller room with a raised platform in the center. On the platform were 17 objects. Different sizes. Different materials. Some looked like machine parts. Some looked like stones. One looked like a sealed container. One looked almost organic. Dax stepped closer. "These are from previous expeditions." The room seemed to grow colder, although the temperature did not change. He pointed. "That one is Drasan material. That device is Sorn. This alloy is Kethri." Voss looked at the objects. 17 records from species that had come here and died. Yara whispered, "It kept something from each of them." Brant said, "Trophies?" Voss shook her head. "No. Records." She thought of the hand mark on the hull. "It remembers who came." They did not touch anything. They moved deeper. The ship was not laid out like any vessel they understood. Corridors connected to rooms without obvious purpose. Some ceilings were too high. Some passages curved like arteries. The glowing lines never stopped. The low pulse continued beneath them. Soon they found a map room. At the center hung a sphere, 2 meters wide, suspended from the ceiling by thin dark cables. The surface moved slowly. Stars shifted across it. Systems appeared and faded. Voss recognized the Rylan cluster. She recognized the inner worlds. She recognized mapped space. Then she saw regions beyond every known chart. Whole sections of the galaxy no human or council species had ever reached. The sphere showed them in detail. Dax stared. "This ship has gone farther than any of us." Voss said, "Much farther." Yara looked at the symbols written around the room. "It has been alone for a long time." The words stayed with them. They left the map room and continued. Then the ship began to test them. At first, Voss did not call it that. The first event happened in a corridor. The floor ahead vanished. 1 second it was solid. The next, there was a gap 2 meters wide dropping into darkness. Brant scanned it. 15 meters down. Solid surface at the bottom. Voss looked across. The corridor continued on the other side. She stepped back, ran forward, and jumped. She landed cleanly. One by one, the others crossed. No one spoke until Brant landed last with a grunt. I dislike this hallway. 40 meters later, the lights went out. Complete darkness swallowed them. Their suit lamps came on automatically. In the hard white beams, the wall markings looked different. Yara raised a hand. Wait. They stopped. She moved closer to the wall. These are not just carved. They are layered. Under directional light, the marks had depth. The soft blue glow had hidden the details. The darkness had forced them to see the writing differently. Dax said, "It changed the light so we would notice." The lights returned. The third event came when the ship's pulse stopped. The low vibration that had followed them since entry simply ceased. The silence was absolute. All 4 stopped at once. 12 seconds passed. Then the pulse returned. Slower than before. Voss looked at Dax. He said, "It is calibrating." Brant said, "To what?" Voss answered, "To us." The fourth event removed all doubt. They entered a wide chamber filled with strange raised structures. Not chairs. Not tools. Not machines. But shapes arranged with purpose. At the center of the floor was a warm circular area. Above it, in the ceiling, was a pale glowing circle unlike the blue-gray lights elsewhere. Voss stepped onto the warm floor. The ceiling light shifted. It focused on her. She moved left. It followed. Dax crossed the floor. It followed him. Yara sat down. The light settled on her and stayed. Brant stood very still. "It is looking at us." Voss said, "Yes." Yara looked up at the pale glow. "It has been looking since we entered." Voss took out a small camera and lifted it. She pointed it at the circle and took a picture. The circle flashed once. Like a shutter. Brant made a sound that was almost laughter. "Did it just take our picture back?" Yara smiled for the first time since entering. "I think it did." That moment changed the fear in them. Not because the ship became safe. It did not. But because it became something else. Not a dead trap. Not a mindless weapon. Something aware. Something curious. Something that watched humans jump gaps, look at walls, sit on floors, and take pictures. After 3,000 words of mystery, this is a good moment to help the channel grow. Tap like if the story has you thinking, subscribe for more deep space narration, and share this video with someone who believes human curiosity is more dangerous than any weapon. They returned to the Resolute after several hours. The doorway in the hull remained open behind them, waiting. Voss was the last to leave. She turned back toward the blue-gray darkness inside. "We will come back," she said. The tone from the doorway shifted slightly. A small change. Almost nothing. But Voss understood it. The ship had heard. That night, alien probes watched the Resolute sit beside the Condemned. Across the sector, governments panicked. Emergency meetings began. Military commanders argued. Diplomats demanded updates. Scientists begged for raw sensor data. No one understood why the human ship still existed. No one understood why the Condemned had opened. On the Resolute, Marcus stayed in engineering, studying an engine that continued running 12% above normal efficiency. Ren tracked the alien probes and wrote a comm report. Dax reviewed recordings. Yara studied images of the script. Voss sat in the common room with tea gone cold in her hands. She thought about the glowing circle. The picture. The warm hull. The way the ship had changed its rhythm after watching them. Dax had used the word calibrating. Voss could not stop thinking about it. Something ancient had turned away every species that came with force, tools, or demands. But it was calibrating itself to humans. The next morning, Voss returned with 6 people. She brought Marcus, because she needed someone who could look at impossible machinery without losing his mind. She brought Nadia Pet, the communication specialist, quiet and precise. She brought Leon Hargrove, maintenance crew, steady in emergencies. She brought Yara again. She brought Ren. Dax remained aboard the Resolute as acting captain, which he accepted with the expression of a man who understood the logic and hated it. Before Voss left, Dax said, "If something goes wrong, I need to know." "You will know." "How?" "Our signals will stop." That is not comforting. It was not meant to be. They entered the condemned again. This time, they took a different corridor from the first great chamber. Voss chose it on purpose. Yesterday, they had followed one path. Today, she wanted the ship to see choice. The new corridor was warmer. The wall markings were larger and more widely spaced. Some looked like diagrams. Some looked like sequences. Marcus walked with his scanner in one hand and his other hand near the wall. After 10 minutes, Voss said, "What are you doing?" "Feeling vibration changes." "With your hand?" "My hand has been useful longer than this scanner." "What do you feel?" "Systems in the walls. Energy movement. Not electricity. Not heat. Something else." He looked troubled, but not afraid. "This ship maintains itself. Gravity, air, temperature, lighting. All continuous. No visible crew. No obvious power plant. It has been doing this for at least 400 years. Nadia said, "Probably longer." Marcus nodded. "Much longer." The corridor ended in a circular room. The floor was shaped like an amphitheater, with rings stepping down toward the center. At the center was a pool. It was not water. It was dark like the whole metal, but it moved like liquid when their lights touched it. From beneath its surface came a faint blue glow, pulsing in time with the ship. Around the pool were symbols. Yara counted them. 17. Voss looked at the ring. 17 symbols. 17 objects on the record platform. 17 known expeditions. Then she saw the gap. A space between 2 symbols where an 18th could fit. Marcus scanned the pool. "It registers as matter, but not any category I know." "What does that mean?" "It means the scanner knows something is there and does not have a word for it." Nadia walked around the ring, photographing each symbol. She stopped at the empty gap. Then she crouched and drew one slow line in the fine dust near the pool's edge. The pool rippled. One clean ripple moved from the center to the edge, then folded back inward. Nadia sat back. "It knows we are at the edge." Voss looked at the pool. "Yes." Leon spoke for the first time since entering. "What is this room?" Voss thought about it. The record platform. The map sphere. The watching light. The tests. The warmth. "I think this is where it talks," she said. "When it decides to talk." Nadia answered softly, "Maybe it is deciding whether it wants to." They stayed in the room for 3 hours. Nobody touched the pool. Nobody demanded anything. Nadia sat on the lowest ring and began to speak. Not in alien language. Not as a formal message. She simply described what she saw. The dark pool. The carved symbols. The warmth in the floor. The sound inside the walls. Her voice was calm and steady. She spoke for 4 minutes. When she stopped, the pool rippled again. Not once. Several ripples crossed the surface, spreading and returning, touching and folding into one another. Yara whispered, "It heard you." Nadia said, "I was not asking it for anything." That sentence settled over the room. Voss looked at her. Nadia continued, "Every species came here wanting something. Data. Control. Recognition. Victory. They came to take, study, prove, demand. I only told it what I saw." Voss turned toward the pool. She spoke carefully. "We do not know who built you. No ripple. We do not know what you are. No ripple. We cannot read your language yet. Stillness. We will come back tomorrow. And after that. We will keep coming until we can talk properly, or until you tell us to leave. If you tell us to leave, we will leave." She paused. "We are not here to take anything." The ship's pulse changed. Not louder. Deeper. The dark pool began to glow from beneath. The blue light warmed, becoming pale and bright, closer to the color of a star. Marcus looked at his scanner. Energy output just increased across the whole ship. He lowered the scanner slowly. It is no longer in standby. From the glowing pool, a shape rose. It was made of light. Not flesh. Not metal. Not smoke. It rose slowly until it stood 2 meters tall above the surface. Its form was not humanoid, but it had direction. It faced them. Everyone stood frozen. Voss stepped forward. "Hello." The light form shifted. Patterns moved through it, fast and complex, like language written in brightness. Voss shook her head. "We cannot read that yet. But we will learn." She placed a hand against her chest. "My name is Elena Voss. My ship is the Resolute. We are humans. We come from Earth." The light form held still. Nadia said quietly, "Ask what it wants." Voss looked at the form. "What are you looking for?" The light moved slowly from its base to its top. One clear motion. Rising. Going. Voss did not fully understand. But she felt the shape of it. The ship was not looking for a thing. It was trying to go somewhere. For 9 days, the humans returned. Every morning, they crossed from the Resolute into the Condemned. Sometimes all 6 entered. Sometimes only Voss and Nadia. Once, Voss sat alone in the amphitheater room for 4 hours while Dax remained in the captain's chair of the Resolute and did not eat. They built language slowly. The translation database helped on day 3. It found structure in the alien script. Not a translation, but patterns. Repeating forms. Grammar. Relationships between symbols. Nadia took that and began building a bridge. She paired words with actions. When she thought a symbol meant rise, she stood. When she thought one meant surface, she touched the wall. When she was wrong, the light form remained still. When she was close, the pool rippled. By day 5, they had 30 words. By day 7, they had 80. By day 9, they had enough to ask the first real question. On the 9th day, Voss sat alone at the edge of the pool. The light form rose before her. She used the words Nadia had built, the gestures they had learned, and the rhythm of pauses the ship seemed to understand. "Tell me what you are." The room changed. Not physically. The walls did not move. The floor did not open. The ceiling stayed still. But light spread from the pool and climbed the walls. It moved through the carved script, illuminating lines in sequence. Voss realized the room was not decorated with writing. It was a record. A record of travel. Stars. Systems. Paths. Encounters. Thousands of years of movement through the galaxy. The ship had crossed places no council map had ever shown. It had studied the dark between spiral arms. It had passed through dead systems, newborn systems, silent worlds, living worlds. And at the beginning of the record was a mark unlike all others. A point beyond the galaxy. Far outside known space. Voss pointed to it and spoke the word Nadia had translated as home. The pool sent one ripple. Yes. The ship had not been born in the galaxy. It had come from somewhere beyond. Across distances almost impossible to imagine. It had traveled alone. Voss sat very still. Then she asked, "Why did you stop here?" The light form shifted. The pool rippled with words she knew and words she did not. She understood searching. She understood complete. She understood waiting. She thought of the 17 symbols. The 17 objects. The empty space waiting for the 18th. You were waiting for something, she said. A ripple. For someone. Another ripple. Voss breathed slowly. You killed the others. The light form became still. She did not look away. The Drasan. The Kethari. The Velhari. The Soren probes. All of them. Why? The answer came in fragments. Intrusion. Harm. Survival. Integrity. And a word Voss did not know. Repeated twice. She worked through the meaning. Test, she said at last. You were testing them. Ripple. Not strength. Not intelligence. Not technology. The light held still. You were testing what they would do when they found something powerful that would not obey them. The pool moved. Yes. The answer settled inside her like a weight. Every species had arrived with desire. Open. Take. Claim. Study. Control. Convince. Use. The ship had read their approach, their tools, their intent. And it had rejected them. What did we have? Voss asked. Why us? The light moved for a long time. Words came slowly. Young. Unstable. Unpredictable. Small. Dangerous. Curious. Then a new word. It appeared with warmth. With weight. With something almost like hope. Voss tried to translate it. She asked again. The form repeated the word. Then it used another word Voss knew well. Crew. She sat at the edge of the pool and felt the pulse under her boots. You need a crew. The pool moved. Not a ripple. A wave. Yes. You have mapped this galaxy, she said slowly. You have seen what you came to see. Now you want to go farther. The light brightened. Beyond the edge. Another wave. Past everything we know. The ship's rhythm deepened. And you cannot go alone. The pool became still. Voss asked, why not? You crossed the dark alone before. The answer came as one word she had first translated incorrectly. She had thought it meant broken. Now she understood it meant something more painful. Lonely. The ship was lonely. Ancient beyond human history. Powerful enough to kill fleets without firing a weapon. Old enough to cross between galaxies. And lonely. The most dangerous ship in known space had not been waiting for a victim. It had been waiting for a crew. This is the kind of moment HFY fans live for. Like the video if humanity's answer feels different from every other species, subscribe for more stories like this, and share it with someone who knows that the bravest thing in space is not always a weapon. Voss returned to the Resolute. She gathered all 11 crew members in the main bay. Nobody joked when she entered. They could see something had changed. She told them everything. She did not soften it. The condemned was alive, or something close enough that the difference no longer mattered. It came from beyond the galaxy. It had spent thousands of years mapping their stars. It had rejected every species that came to take from it. It had opened for humans because they came without weapons and without demands. It wanted to leave. It wanted to go beyond mapped space. It wanted a crew. It had chosen them. Silence filled the bay. Yara was the first to speak. How far? I do not know, Voss said. Ren asked, for how long? I do not know. Brant asked, are we coming back? Voss looked at him. I do not know. That answer was the heaviest one. Marcus leaned back in his chair and stared at the ceiling. So it cannot do it alone. No. It chose us. Yes. 11 humans on an old survey ship. Yes. Marcus looked at her. Then we would be idiots to say no. Nadia said, yes. Just that. One word. Ren said, it will need a pilot. Leon said, it will need someone who can fix things. Yara said, it will need someone who can keep learning. Dax looked at Voss for a long time. Then he nodded. I plotted the course once. I suppose I can do it again. One by one, every crew member said yes. Brant was last. He stared at the wall for almost a full minute. Then he said, if we are joining the most dangerous ship in the galaxy, do we get to rename it? Voss said, yes. Good. Because Condemned is a terrible name. Nobody argued. The next 24 hours changed galactic history. The monitoring probes around the Rylan cluster lost signal one by one. At first, 6 governments believed the probes had failed. Then their backup networks failed too. Then long-range scans showed the impossible. The Condemned was no longer where it had been for 400 years. The Resolute was gone too. The Galactic Council called an emergency session. 14 species attended. The meeting lasted 11 hours. They argued about danger. They argued about humanity. They argued about whether the humans had been destroyed or captured or tricked. Then the final probe image arrived. It showed the Condemned, its dark hull now glowing from within with warm pale light, something never recorded in 4 centuries of observation. Beside it was the small shape of the Resolute. Close to its flank. Aligned with it. Not trapped. Not destroyed. Escorting. The 2 ships were aimed outward. Toward the unmapped dark beyond the known galaxy. The Vthari representative stared at the image long after the meeting ended. Her people had called the ship the Mouth. They had believed it was a weapon. They had been wrong. The Kethri had thought it was a prize. They had been wrong. The Velhari had thought it was a mind to be persuaded. They had been wrong. Everyone had been wrong about humanity too. Humans were not special because they were the strongest. They were not the oldest. They were not the most advanced. They were not the wisest. They were new in a stranger way. New enough to be afraid and still step forward. New enough to admit they did not understand. New enough to touch the hull of a monster and say hello. On the ship that was no longer the Condemned, Voss stood on the bridge for the first time. It was not what she expected. There were no chairs like human chairs. No consoles like human consoles. No screens with familiar controls. The bridge was a wide room at the forward point of the ship, with a curved transparent wall showing the stars ahead in perfect clarity. Not a window. Something better. A surface that showed the outside as if space itself had been brought closer. The light form was there too, rising from the floor without the pool. Present. Waiting. Available. Nadia worked beside one wall, building translation tools. Marcus had already found access to several engineering layers and had begun talking to the ship's systems like they were stubborn engines with bad habits. Ren stood in the pilot space, which adjusted itself around her as she moved. After 3 hours of testing, she declared it acceptable, which everyone understood meant she was amazed. Brant chose the new name. It took him 11 minutes. He considered 4 options. Rejected 3. Then he stood in the entrance chamber with a can of white paint and said, "The first step." Voss looked at him. "Why that?" Brant shrugged. "Because it has been waiting. Because it is going somewhere. Because we are either the first mistake or the first answer." Nadia said, "It likes it." They all looked at her. She pointed at the wall lights. The ship's pulse had changed. Warm. Steady. Almost pleased. So they painted the name on the inner wall of the entrance chamber in human letters. The first step. Soon after, the ancient ship moved. Not like a normal vessel. No engine flare. No violent acceleration. Space simply changed around it, and the stars ahead drew nearer. The Resolute rested inside one of its great bays now, safe and silent, no longer leading, but carried. Voss stood before the transparent wall and looked at the edge of mapped space falling behind them. Everything known became smaller. The council worlds. The trade routes. The warning zones. The old maps. All of it became history behind their backs. Ahead was darkness so vast it had no names. The ship's pulse ran through the floor beneath her feet. Not standby anymore. Not waiting. Awake. Full power. Moving with purpose for the first time in centuries. Voss placed her palm against the warm transparent wall. It was the same gesture she had made at the beginning. A hand on the hull. No force. No demand. Just presence. Behind her, 11 humans began their work. Nadia spoke softly to a light that had crossed the void between galaxies. Marcus argued with a power system older than human civilization. Run learned to fly a vessel that had once terrified every species in known space. Brant checked empty corridors because security officers always needed something to check. Dax watched the star maps change and began making new ones. Yara recorded everything, because someone had to remember the moment humanity stopped being only the newest species in the galaxy and became something far more dangerous. A companion to the unknown. Far away, the Galactic Council continued to debate. Some feared what humanity had done. Some admired it. Some called it reckless. Some called it destiny. But none of them could change the truth. For 400 years, the ship had rejected every alien. It rejected conquerors. It rejected diplomats. It rejected machines. It rejected those who came to take, those who came to prove, and those who came to control. Then humanity arrived. Not fearless. Not prepared. Not even fully sure what it was doing. A small crew in a worn survey ship crossed the forbidden line, touched the warm hull, and did the one thing no one else had truly done. They listened. And somewhere in that listening, the most dangerous ship in the galaxy found what it had been waiting for. Not masters. Not owners. Not worshippers. Crew. If this journey kept you watching until the end, show the channel some love with a like, subscribe for the next HFY adventure, and share this story with someone who understands why humanity's greatest power is not strength, but the choice to step closer when the universe tells everyone else to run. The first step moved beyond the last known marker. The stars behind became a thin silver field. The darkness ahead opened wide. Voss felt the ship breathe under her hand. She did not speak. For once, nothing needed to be said. The ancient consciousness beside them understood enough. The humans understood enough. They were leaving the galaxy that had feared the ship. They were entering the dark that had once made even the ship lonely. But it was not lonely now. And neither were they. The first step went on. What happens when humanity becomes the only answer to something that rejected the entire galaxy? What happens when a ship that killed every species finally chooses humans instead? Before we continue, take a second to like this video, subscribe to the channel, and share it with someone who loves deep space stories where humanity walks straight into the unknown without fear. The first step moved through the dark beyond the galaxy like it had always known the way. There was no shaking, no sound of engines, no visible thrust. Space itself seemed to adjust around it, as if the universe was making room for something it had been waiting on for a very long time. Inside the bridge, Voss stood still. The transparent wall in front of her showed nothing familiar anymore. No mapped stars. No known clusters. Just distant light patterns that did not match any catalog from the Galactic Council. Behind her, the crew worked in silence that felt heavier than words. Nadia sat near the wall, running translation loops that were now barely keeping up with the ship's responses. Marcus had stopped talking to himself and started listening instead, as if the ship's systems had begun speaking a language he was slowly learning through pressure and intuition. Ren kept her hands near the control space, not because she needed to steer, but because the ship responded better when she acted like she was steering. Brant stood near the entrance like always, watching everything, saying nothing. Dax broke the silence first. "We are not in known space anymore." No one answered him. Because everyone already felt it. The air inside the ship was different. Not in pressure or temperature, but in presence. Like something vast had turned its attention toward them completely. Then the light form in the center of the bridge moved. It rose slightly, then shifted into a pattern that Nadia immediately began recording. She frowned. "This is not correction anymore," she said softly. "What is it then?" Voss asked. Nadia hesitated. "It is instruction." Marcus looked up from his console. "That is worse." The ship did not react to the comment. It simply continued forward. For a long time, there was only travel. Hours passed without change in visible surroundings. But internal systems showed constant adjustment. Energy redistribution. Structural recalibration. Small shifts in gravitational balance that kept everything perfectly stable even as reality outside the ship remained undefined. Then something appeared ahead. At first, it looked like a line. A thin fracture in space itself. Dark. Straight. Perfect. Ren leaned forward. That is not a natural formation. The line expanded slowly as they approached. Not like an object growing closer, but like something being revealed layer by layer. Nadia's voice dropped. "It is not part of space," she said. "It is between space." Voss stepped closer to the forward view. "What does it mean?" Nadia did not answer immediately. Then she said, "It means this is a boundary." The first step slowed. Not by command. By choice. Or something close enough that the difference no longer mattered. The light form pulsed once. The entire ship vibrated softly in response. Marcus checked his readings. "All systems stable," he said. "But nothing about this is normal stable." The line ahead widened into a vast horizontal structure. A threshold. Like a door stretched across reality. Beyond it was not darkness. It was absence of definition. No stars. No dust. No light behavior they could recognize. Just something vast and undefined waiting on the other side. Dax spoke quietly. "So this is where it stops being a galaxy." Brant muttered. "I preferred space when it made sense." Nobody laughed. The ship moved closer. Voss raised a hand. "Hold position." But the command did not echo in the usual way. Instead, the ship responded by slowing gently, as if respecting the suggestion rather than obeying it. Nadia looked up. "It is listening differently now." "Differently how?" Voss asked. "Not as system," she said. "As decision." The words settled heavily. Marcus stepped away from his console. "If it is making decisions," he said, "then we are not passengers." Ren nodded slowly. "We are input." The light form in the bridge shifted again. This time, it projected something into the air. Not text. Not image. A sequence of moving patterns that formed relationships between points, like a map that refused to stay still. Nadia's eyes widened. This is new. What is it saying? Voss asked. Nadia tracked it carefully. It is showing multiple paths. Paths to where? Nadia hesitated. Then she said, different endings. Silence hit the bridge again. The first step did not cross the boundary yet. It waited. Like it was showing them something important before they chose. Dax crossed his arms. So we are at a choice point. Marcus frowned. I hate choice points in ancient alien ships. Brant added. They usually mean pain. The light pattern shifted again. One path brightened slightly. Nadia pointed. That one is aligned with current trajectory. And the others? Voss asked. Unknown, she said. But not random. Ren studied the projection. It is offering directions. Marcus shook his head. No. It is offering outcomes. That word changed the atmosphere completely. Outcomes meant consequences. Not routes. Not navigation. Consequences. Voss stepped closer to the projection. The ship responded by stabilizing the pattern, holding it steady for her observation. She spoke carefully. What happens if we do not choose? The light form pulsed. Nadia translated slowly. It says, continuation. Dax narrowed his eyes. That does not sound like a good answer. Marcus nodded. In engineering terms, continuation without choice usually means automation taking over. Brant added. Or getting dragged somewhere. The ship did not correct them. It simply waited. Voss looked at the paths again. Then at her crew. 11 humans standing inside something older than their civilization. Something that had crossed galaxies alone and survived encounters that erased entire fleets. Now it was asking them to decide its direction. Not as passengers. Not as cargo. As something closer to a mind working alongside it. Voss spoke quietly. If we choose wrong, what happens? Nadia listened. Then answered. It does not say wrong. That is not comforting, Dax said. It says alignment, Nadia continued. Marcus crossed his arms again. That is worse. The light shifted. One of the paths pulsed slightly stronger. Ren stepped forward. I think it is waiting for agreement. Brant frowned. Agreement with what exactly? Ren looked at the projection. With direction. Silence again. Then Voss made her decision. We do not choose blindly, she said. Dax looked at her. Then how do we choose? Voss turned toward Nadia. We ask it something first. Nadia blinked. What kind of question? Voss looked at the light form. Why show us this? Nadia repeated it in the structured pattern they had built over 9 days. The bridge fell completely silent. The light form responded instantly. The patterns shifted rapidly. Nadia struggled to keep up. Marcus leaned closer. Translate. Nadia's voice was slow. It says, because you are first without taking. Voss frowned. That is not clear. Nadia continued. First without conquest. First without demand. First without extraction. Dax exhaled slightly. So we are the exception. The light form changed again. Nadia's eyes narrowed. No, she said slowly. It says we are not exception. Then what are we? Voss asked. Nadia hesitated. Then she said, we are compatibility. Marcus muttered. That sounds like engineering language. It is, Nadia said. It is describing us like we fit a system. Ren looked at the projection again. Fit for what system? The light form responded immediately. The patterns expanded. Nadia froze. Then whispered. It is not just showing paths. What is it showing? Voss asked. Nadia looked up slowly. It is showing continuation network. Marcus stepped closer. That is not a term. It is now, Nadia said quietly. The projection revealed something enormous. Not a map. Not a route. But a structure spanning something far beyond their understanding. Like a connected lattice across multiple regions of space, intersecting unknown layers of reality itself. And the first step was not just inside it. It was part of it. Dax spoke slowly. This ship is not traveling through space. Marcus finished the thought. It is traveling through something built. Brant muttered. Built by who? No one answered. Because the light form did. Nadia translated carefully. It says, those before failed alignment. Voss looked sharply. The ones who died. Yes. And we are aligned. The light pulsed once. Yes. The bridge felt suddenly smaller. Not physically. Conceptually. As if the universe outside had expanded and they had realized how little they understood their position inside it. Voss spoke carefully. If we continue, where does it end? Nadia listened. Then paused for a long time. It does not say end. What does it say? She swallowed. It says next. Marcus let out a slow breath. I do not like that word in this context. Ren stepped closer to the pilot space. The ship is waiting for confirmation. Dax looked at Voss. This is the point of no return. Brant raised an eyebrow. We passed several of those already. Emotionally or physically? Dax asked. Both, Brant said. Voss looked at the projection again. Then at the crew. 11 humans standing in a place no human map had ever shown. She spoke clearly. We continue. The light form reacted instantly. The lattice ahead shifted. One path stabilized. The others faded slightly. Nadia translated the final response. It says, acknowledged. The first step moved. Not forward. Not sideways. But through. The boundary ahead did not break. It accepted them. Like water opening for something it already recognized. The ship passed into the unknown layer beyond the galaxy. And everything changed. The stars disappeared completely. But instead of darkness, there was structure. Threads of light. Invisible pathways becoming visible only as they moved. Marcus stared at his console. I am reading spatial constants that should not exist. Ren whispered. I have no reference points at all. Dax looked at the view. There is no up or down anymore. Brant added. No left or right either. I am not sure I like that. Nadia was silent for a long moment. Then she said something that made everyone turn. It is not space. What is it then? Voss asked. Nadia looked at the light form. Then at the shifting lattice beyond. It is transition. The first step moved deeper. And far ahead, something new began to respond. Not as threat. Not as resistance. But as awareness noticing another awareness entering its domain. And for the first time since humanity touched the condemned. The unknown was not silent anymore. It was watching back. What does humanity do when the unknown finally answers back? And what happens when the most dangerous ship in the galaxy discovers that humans are dangerous for a very different reason? Before we close this journey, give the video a like, subscribe to the channel, and share it with someone who enjoys stories where humanity does not win by being the strongest, but by being brave enough to understand. The unknown watched them. Voss felt it before Nadia translated anything. She felt it in the floor, in the walls, in the way the light inside the first step pulled inward, as if the ship itself had gone quiet out of respect. Outside the transparent wall, the strange transition space stretched forever. It was not empty. It was full of lines. Threads of pale light crossed the darkness in impossible directions. Some moved like rivers. Some hung still like frozen lightning. Some curved around places that looked like holes cut into reality itself. Ren stood in a pilot space with her jaw tight. "I can feel pressure on the controls," she said. "Not physical pressure. More like a question." Marcus looked up from his readings. "The ship is holding position." Dak said, "I thought we were moving." "We were," Marcus said. "Now we are being allowed to stop." Brant gave him a flat look. "I dislike that sentence." Nadia did not speak. She stared at the light form in the center of the bridge. It had changed shape. It was smaller now, more focused, almost folded inward. Voss stepped closer to it. "What is watching us?" The light form did not answer at once. The pause was long enough for every human on the bridge to understand that the ship was choosing its words carefully. Then the patterns moved through the light. Nadia translated slowly. "It says, Old Road Keeper." Voss looked at the threads outside. "A guardian?" Nadia listened again. "Not guardian. Not exactly. More like witness. Something that remains when travelers pass through." Marcus whispered, "A toll gate with a memory." The ship gave one soft pulse. Nadia looked surprised. It understood that. Brant said, "Wonderful. Now the ancient alien road knows Marcus is rude." The smallest smile touched Voss's face, then vanished. Outside, one of the threads of light bent toward them. It moved with terrible slowness, but the scale of it made that movement terrifying. It was far away, yet it filled the forward view, a pale line so wide that the first step looked small beside it. Then the line opened. Not split. Opened. Like an eye. Inside it was light, but not warm light. This was white, sharp, and ancient. It carried no anger. That made it worse. Anger could be answered. This felt like judgment without emotion. The bridge dimmed. Every system display flickered. Marcus stepped forward. Power draw just spiked across the outer hull. Voss kept her eyes on the light. "Is it attacking?" "No," Marcus said. "Scanning. Reading. Something is going through every layer of the ship." Brant moved closer to Voss. "With respect, Captain, should we be worried?" "Yes," Voss said. "Good. I was hoping the answer would be simple." The white light touched the first step. Voss felt it pass through her. Not her body. Her memory. For one terrible second, she was back at the hull, palm against the warm metal. Then she was a child on Earth, staring at rain on a window. Then she was in her first command chair, pretending not to be scared. Then she saw the faces of her crew as they each said yes. The light moved through all of it. It did not steal. It examined. Around her, the others stood frozen. Nadia had tears on her face. Marcus gripped the edge of a structure with both hands. Ren whispered something in a language Voss did not know. Brant looked angry, which meant he was afraid. Then the light withdrew. The bridge returned to its soft glow. The thread outside folded back into the dark. For a moment, nothing happened. Then Nadia gasped. The light form was speaking fast. Too fast. "Nadia," Voss said. "I am trying." "What did it say?" Nadia swallowed. "The road keeper asked the ship why it brought us." Voss felt the whole bridge hold its breath. "And what did the ship answer?" Nadia looked at her. It answered, "Because they stayed." Nobody spoke. The words were simple, but they landed deeper than any speech. They stayed. When fear came, they stayed. When the ship watched them, they stayed. When they did not understand, they stayed. When they could have turned back, they came again. The white eye in the distance opened once more. This time, it did not scan the ship. It looked at the humans. Voss stepped forward. She did not know if the thing could hear her. She did not know if words mattered in a place like this. But she had learned something from the first step. Sometimes the first message did not need to be perfect. It only needed to be honest. "We are human," she said. "We do not fully understand where we are. We do not know your rules. We do not know what lies beyond this road." The light remained fixed on her. "But we came with the first step because it asked for a crew. It was alone. We know what that means." Nadia listened to the ship, then nodded slightly. "It is carrying your meaning." Voss continued. "We are not here to claim this road. We are not here to conquer what is beyond it. We are not here to take power from anything that lives here." She looked at her crew. "We are here because something old reached out, and we answered." The silence afterward was complete. Then the road keeper moved. A vast shape formed around the white eye, made from thousands of threads folding together. It was not a body. It was not a ship. It was a pattern so large that the mind tried to simplify it and failed. Nadia translated in a whisper. "It asks what humans do when they find something weaker than themselves." Voss did not answer immediately. That question had weight. It was not asking about their words. It was asking about their nature. Dax spoke before Voss could. "Sometimes we protect it." Marcus added, "Sometimes we break it." Ren said, "Sometimes we study it until we forget it is alive." Yara, who had been silent near the back of the bridge, stepped forward. "Sometimes we love it." Brant looked at the light and said, "Sometimes we are ashamed of what we did to it." Voss nodded slowly. "All of that is true." Nadia looked nervous, but she translated. The road keeper did not move. Voss continued. "We are not pure. We are not harmless. We are dangerous because we want things. We are dangerous because we chase what scares us. We are dangerous because we can turn curiosity into a blade." The first step pulsed under their feet. Voss placed her hand on the transparent wall. "But we are also dangerous to loneliness. We are dangerous to silence. We are dangerous to the idea that fear should always win." The light outside flickered. "Not like damage. Like thought." Voss looked directly into it. "If you are asking whether humans are safe, the answer is no. We are not safe. But if you are asking whether we can choose better than we did yesterday, then yes. That is what we do. We choose. Again and again." The road keeper answered. The entire transition space brightened. Nadia covered her ears, though there was no sound. The first step shook once, deep and slow. Marcus shouted, "Captain, the network is opening." Outside, the threads of light pulled apart and formed a corridor. It stretched ahead into darkness, lined with pale stars that had not existed a moment before. Ren gripped the pilot space. "I have a path." Voss turned to Nadia. "What did it say?" Nadia was crying openly now, but her voice was steady. "It said, then choose with it." The road keeper was not granting permission to the humans alone. It was granting permission to the ship and crew together. The first step moved forward. This time, Ren moved with it. Not controlling it. Not being controlled. Together. The ancient ship and the human pilot crossed into the corridor of light. The transition was violent in its silence. There was no impact. No flash. No warning. One moment they were inside the strange road beyond the galaxy. The next, they emerged into a sky no human had ever seen. Stars filled the forward wall. Not distant and scattered like the familiar galaxy. These stars were close, bright, and young. Clouds of golden gas stretched between them like oceans of fire. Great rings of dust circled newborn suns. Far below, or above, or in some direction that human language could not hold, a vast blue world turned slowly beneath twin lights. For the first time in thousands of years, the first step made a sound through its entire body. It was not the low pulse. It was not the opening tone. It was something larger. A long, deep release. Like grief leaving. Like hope entering. Nadia whispered, "It says, next sky." No one moved. Even Brant had no joke. Voss stared at the impossible view. The ship had crossed from one galaxy to another long ago. It had mapped the Milky Way alone. Now, with humans aboard, it had reached the next sky. And it was not finished. Not even close. The galaxy behind them had feared a monster. But the monster had been a traveler. The monster had been a survivor. The monster had been waiting for someone who would not treat it as a prize. Voss turned from the view and looked at her crew. Every face was lit by strange new stars. They were tired. Afraid. Far from home. And alive. She said, "Status." Marcus laughed once under his breath. "All systems are impossible, but stable." Ren said, "Flight path is open." Nadia said, "The first step is calm." Dax said, "No known reference points." Yara said, "Recording everything." Brant looked at the alien sky. Then he said, "I would like it recorded that this remains a terrible idea." Voss smiled. Recorded. The bridge warmed around them. The light form rose brighter than before. Its shape shifted, slowly and carefully, until it formed something humans could understand. Not a face. Not a body. A hand. Made of pale light. It extended toward Voss. The same shape as the scorch mark on the hull. The same image that had started the mystery. A hand reaching out. Voss stepped forward. She raised her own hand and placed it against the light. For one moment, ancient consciousness and human skin met across every distance that had ever separated them. The ship spoke one word. Nadia did not need to translate. They all understood it. Crew. If you have stayed with this story this far, you are part of the journey too. Like the video, subscribe for the next story, and share it with someone who believes the unknown is not only something to fear, but something waiting to be met. Back in the Milky Way, weeks passed before the Galactic Council received anything. At first, there was only fear. Then debate. Then anger. Then denial. Human representatives were questioned for days. Where had the Resolute gone? What had humanity done? Had they made a military alliance with the condemned? Had they taken control of it? Had it taken control of them? Humanity had no answers. Earth Command only knew what the last transmission had shown. The Resolute had entered the ancient ship. The ancient ship had awakened. Then both had vanished beyond all known scanning range. Some species called it disaster. Some called it theft. Some called it proof that humans were too dangerous to be trusted near unknown technology. Then, on the 23rd day, every major communication network in the inner systems received the same signal. It did not come through normal channels. It appeared inside ships, stations, council halls, and private terminals all at once. For 6 seconds, there was only light. Then an image formed. The first step, no longer dark, no longer dead, floating before a new galaxy full of golden stars. Beside the image was a human message, written in plain standard language. "We are alive." Then a second line appeared. "We are not alone." Then a third. "Neither is it." After that came a data packet. Star readings. Atmospheric scans. Gravitational maps. Images of a sky no species in the Milky Way had ever seen. And one final recording. Captain Elena Voss stood on the bridge of the first step, pale new stars behind her. Her voice was steady. To the Galactic Council, to Earth, and to anyone listening. The ship you called the Condemned was never waiting to attack us. It was waiting for someone it could trust to continue its journey. She paused. We do not know when we will return. We do not know how far this road goes. We do know this. Every species that came to the ship tried to make it answer their purpose. Humanity survived because, for once, we did not ask the unknown to become useful before we allowed it to be alive. In the council chamber, representatives watched in silence. Voss continued. If you remember anything from this, remember this. The most dangerous thing about humanity is not our weapons. It is not our speed, our stubbornness, or our hunger for discovery. Her eyes softened. It is that sometimes, when every wise voice says turn back, one of us still steps forward and says hello. The recording ended. The council chamber stayed silent for a long time. No one knew what to say. Because the humans had not conquered the most feared ship in history. They had not defeated it. They had not stolen it. They had done something far more unsettling. They had befriended it. And that made the galaxy rethink everything it believed about danger. Years later, the Rylen cluster became a place of pilgrimage. Ships came from every species, stopping at a safe distance from the empty space where the Condemned had once waited. There was no wreck. No warning beacon. No dead hull. Only a small human marker placed there by a later Earth vessel. It carried one sentence. Not all doors open for strength. Some open for kindness. Beyond the edge of known reality, the first step continued on. It crossed young star fields. It watched worlds form. It passed silent ruins older than galaxies. It found places where light behaved like music and storms moved between dimensions like living things. And everywhere it went, 11 humans walked its halls, repaired its wounds, learned its language, argued in its chambers, laughed under alien stars, and made it less alone. In time, the ship learned human habits. It learned that Marcus hit machines because he cared about them. It learned that Brant made jokes when fear was too large to hold quietly. It learned that Nadia's silence meant thought, not distance. It learned that Ren trusted motion more than words. It learned that Dax always prepared for the worst because he wanted everyone to survive the best. It learned that Voss placed her hand on warm surfaces when she needed to remember that even impossible things could answer gently. And the humans learned too. They learned that the first step had no single heart, but many centers of awareness. They learned that its loneliness had not made it cruel. Only careful. They learned that the species it rejected had not died because it hated them. They died because the ship had seen in them the same hunger that had destroyed something long ago, somewhere beyond the first galaxy, before its journey began. It had waited centuries for a species dangerous enough to go forward, but gentle enough not to turn every discovery into a throne. That was humanity's test. Not whether humans could survive the ship. Whether the ship could survive humans. And for once, humanity passed. Many years after the first crossing, Voss stood again at the transparent wall. Her hair had gone silver at the edges. Her crew was older too. The first step was brighter now, its halls warmer, its language richer with human words painted beside ancient script. Ahead of them was another boundary. Another road. Another impossible darkness. Voss placed her palm against the wall. The ship pulsed beneath her hand. Not asking if she was afraid. It knew she was. Not asking if she understood. It knew she did not. Only asking if she would continue. Behind her, Brant said, still a terrible idea. Marcus said, still stable. Ren said, path is ready. Nadia said, it is asking. Dax said, Captain. Voss looked into the dark beyond the next sky. Then she smiled. Tell it yes. The first step moved forward. And this time, when the unknown watched them, humanity watched back. Not as conquerors. Not as masters. Not as children stumbling into forbidden places. As crew. As companions. As the answer, an ancient ship had crossed galaxies to find. The dangerous ship that rejected every alien had finally encountered dangerous humanity. And together, they went farther than fear could follow.